Commander Eliza Chen jolted awake, her quarters bathed in the harsh red glow of emergency lighting. The alarms weren't part of a drill. "Commander to the bridge, Priority Alpha," the ship's AI announced with artificial calm that contrasted sharply with the urgent klaxons. Chen was moving before her feet hit the floor, muscle memory guiding her through the corridors of the ESS Curiosity. Earth's most advanced deep space observatory vessel wasn't supposed to find anything extraordinary during this routine survey mission. That's what made the alarm all the more concerning. "Status report," Chen demanded as she entered the bridge, her dark eyes quickly scanning the displays. Lieutenant Park, her second-in-command, stood rigidly by the main sensor array. "Ma'am, we've detected an anomalous signal originating from Sector 7 Alpha in Andromeda." "Andromeda?" Chen frowned. "That's well beyond our detection range." "That's what makes it impossible," Park replied, stepping aside to reveal the data stream. "It shouldn't be detectable, yet it's coming through clearer than communications from Luna Station." The signal pulsed across the screens in perfect, complex mathematical sequences, too ordered to be natural, too elegant to be random noise. Chen leaned forward, her scientific mind already cataloging the patterns. "It's structured like nothing in our databases," she murmured, "but there's something familiar." As she adjusted the parameters, a chill ran down her spine. The pattern shifted, reconfiguring itself subtly. "It's changing," she whispered. "Run a comparative analysis on the last 60 seconds of data." The AI complied instantly. Confirmation. "Signal pattern has altered by approximately 0.037% since initial detection. It's responding to our observation," Chen said, her voice barely audible above the now silenced alarms. "It knows we're watching." 3 days later, Chen stood before the Scientific Authority Council on Earth, her findings displayed on the chamber's massive screens. "This signal defies conventional explanation," she concluded. "It contains embedded mathematical concepts that suggest intelligence, and more importantly, it appears to be adaptive." Dr. Yamamoto, head of the council, removed his glasses with a weary gesture. "Commander Chen, while we respect your accomplishments, what you're suggesting borders on fantasy. The signal is clearly an equipment malfunction, or a previously unrecognized natural phenomenon." "With all due respect, I've ruled out both possibilities," Chen countered, advancing to her final slide. "And there's more. Buried within the signal structure are what appear to be coordinates." The chamber erupted in dismissive murmurs. "Coordinates to what, Commander?" Yamamoto asked, his skepticism evident. "A remote asteroid in the Kuiper Belt," Chen replied, "where Dr. Julian Abrams disappeared 3 years ago after claiming to hear what he called the music of the universe." The laughter was immediate and cutting. Dr. Abrams, once Chen's mentor and one of Earth's most brilliant physicists, had become a cautionary tale of genius slipping into madness. That night, Chen found a message waiting in her secure terminal from Lieutenant Park. "The Curiosity has been reassigned. Mission canceled. Full science team replacement ordered." Chen stared at the screen, understanding immediately. They weren't just dismissing her theory, they were removing her entirely. 20 minutes later, she was en route to the spaceport, her most trusted crew members already alerted. The coordinates from the signal burned in her mind, alongside Abrams' final message to her years ago. "When they come calling, Eliza, remember that the universe doesn't speak in whispers. It sings." She didn't notice Park watching from the shadows as she boarded the shuttle, nor did she see him activate his direct line to Authority security. The ES Curiosity would launch in 3 hours, whether the Authority approved or not. Whatever waited at those coordinates, Chen was certain of one thing: humanity wasn't meant to ignore this call. The ESS Curiosity slipped into orbit around the barren asteroid, exactly where the signal's coordinates had indicated. Through the viewports, the Kuiper Belt's scattered light cast eerie shadows across the cratered surface. "Scan complete, Commander," reported Lieutenant Capri, the ship's tactical officer. "There's an artificial structure embedded in the northern hemisphere." Atmosphere detected inside. Chen nodded grimly. And life signs. Just one, ma'am. Human. 3 years. Dr. Julian Abrams had been surviving alone on this desolate rock for 3 years. Chen suited up personally for the expedition team, ignoring protocol that typically kept commanding officers aboard ship during initial contacts. Proximity alert. Catri's voice crackled through the comm as Chen's team approached the airlock. Military vessel on approach vector, broadcasting authority codes. They're ordering immediate surrender of the Curiosity. Chen cursed. Park sold us out faster than I expected. Maintain position and ready the countermeasures we discussed. To her team, she added, we've got 30 minutes, tops. Move. The interior of the asteroid base defied explanation. Curved walls shimmered with materials unknown to Earth science, covered in equations that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. At the center stood Dr. Julian Abrams, or what remained of him. Once robust and commanding, he now appeared skeletal, his wild eyes darting between invisible points in the air as his fingers traced equations on a holographic interface. Eliza, he said without turning. You heard it too. The song between the stars. Julian, Chen approached cautiously. What happened to you? What is all this? He laughed. The sound cracked from disuse. I found the source of the signal, or rather, it found me. Look around you. Not built by human hands, yet calibrated perfectly for our minds. The chamber was filled with devices of impossible configuration. At its center stood what appeared to be a tuning fork the size of a person, vibrating imperceptibly and emitting a faint blue glow. The cosmic tuning fork, Abrams whispered reverently. It resonates with the quantum fabric of reality itself. The signal contains the frequency needed to activate it properly. Chen's science officer scanned the device. Commander, it's generating quantum fields unlike anything in our databases. The energy readings are impossible. Not impossible, Abrams corrected, just beyond current human understanding. But the signal, it's teaching us. Chen's comm unit crackled. Commander, the authority vessel is preparing to board. We have less than 5 minutes. Julian, we need to go. Now. Abrams shook his head violently. Can't leave. Not without completing the sequence. His fingers flew across the interface. The latest signal pattern. It's the final key. Before Chen could stop him, Abrams input the sequence into the tuning fork. The device's hum increased to a pitch that made their teeth vibrate. The blue glow intensified, enveloping the room. Back to the ship, Chen ordered, grabbing Abrams and dragging him toward the exit. Authority vessel locking weapons, Catri shouted as they burst onto the bridge. Evasive maneuvers, Chen commanded, strapping into the captain's chair. Engage FTL as soon as we clear the asteroid's gravity well. The Curiosity shuddered under weapons fire as they pulled away. Behind them, the asteroid glowed with the same blue light as the tuning fork. FTL engaged, the navigator announced. At that exact moment, the quantum field from the asteroid expanded outward, intersecting with the Curiosity's drive field. Space itself seemed to tear open before them. A swirling vortex of impossible physics, a stable wormhole where no wormhole should exist. The Curiosity was yanked forward irresistibly. Through the viewports, Chen watched in horror as the pursuing authority vessel, caught in the edge of the phenomenon, contorted impossibly as conflicting laws of physics tore it apart. Then came darkness and a sensation of falling through infinity. When the emergency lights flickered back on, the view screen showed unfamiliar stars. The navigation system struggled to identify their position before displaying an impossible calculation. They were over 12,000 light-years from Earth. And directly ahead, an enormous artificial structure began to turn toward them, scanning beams reaching out to taste the unexpected visitors. Shields failing. Propulsion systems offline. Lieutenant Catri's voice cut through the chaos as the Curiosity hung motionless before the colossal alien structure. The scanning beams had penetrated every system, leaving the ship paralyzed. On the main view screen, the structure revealed itself, a vast orbital station of interlocking geometric shapes that seemed to shift and reconfigure even as they watched. "All hands, prepare for forced boarding," Commander Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Remember your training. We represent Earth now." Dr. Abrams laughed, a sound bordering on hysteria. "Oh, we're far beyond diplomatic protocols, Eliza. They've been watching us for longer than you realize." Before Chen could respond, a section of the bridge wall simply dissolved. Through the opening stepped three figures unlike anything human eyes had seen before. The lead entity resembled an elongated insectoid with iridescent exoskeleton and multiple manipulator limbs, flanked by two entirely different species, one vaporous and contained within a floating mechanism, the other reptilian with crystalline growths protruding from its skull. "Humans," the insectoid figure stated, its voice emerging from a translator device. "Controlling wormhole technology. Mathematically impossible scenario. Evolutionary probability 0. Chen stepped forward. "I am Commander Eliza Chen of the Earth research vessel Curiosity. We activated the wormhole accidentally while escaping pursuit. We come in peace." The three aliens exchanged glances through compound eyes and crystalline sensory organs. "Primitive primates," the reptilian being said, "lacking necessary cognitive structures for six-dimensional mathematics. Yet here you stand, having achieved what the consortium declared theoretically impossible for your species." Abrams moved beside Chen. "They're shocked, Eliza. They've categorized us, studied us, and determined exactly what we can and cannot comprehend, and we've just defied their models." The vaporous entity's containment field pulsed. "The human vessel will be secured. You will submit to examination. The Galactic Consortium requires explanation." Hours later, Chen found herself in what appeared to be a conference chamber, surrounded by representatives from 17 distinct species. The universal translator struggled with the overlapping dialogue, clearly assisted by unknown third parties. Genetic modification must be considered. Containment protocols should have been implemented earlier. Chen slammed her hand on the table, silencing the chamber. "Enough. You've analyzed our ship, our technology, even our biology without permission. Now I demand answers. What is this consortium, and why are you so disturbed by our arrival?" The insectoid representative, identified as Supreme Coordinator Tskek, stepped forward. "The Galactic Consortium governs all advanced civilizations within reach. Each species evolves with specific cognitive specializations. The Quar," he gestured to the crystalline beings, "process quantum calculations innately. The Voral," indicating the vaporous entities, "perceive subatomic interactions. My people, the Kizik, coordinate multidimensional logistics." "And humans?" Chen asked. "Cataloged as limited spatial thinkers with primitive technological development. Scheduled for standard containment within 50 of your years to prevent disruptive expansion." Tskek's mandibles clicked. "Yet you have achieved stable wormhole technology, something our combined specialists have failed to perfect despite millennia of effort." A commotion from the corridor interrupted them as Chen's engineer, Navarro, was escorted in by guards. His hands were covered in some bright blue substance. "Commander," he called. "They were going to decommission life support while examining our systems. I had to improvise repairs using their materials." The chamber erupted in shocked chittering and buzzing. "Impossible," declared a Quar scientist. "The human reconfigured biotechnical composites into functional systems without training or templates. The cognitive architecture required exceeds their evolutionary parameters." Chen stood, recognizing the shifting power dynamic. "Perhaps your parameters are wrong. Humans don't specialize. We adapt. And it seems we see connections your specialized minds miss." As the implications sank in, a junior Kizikade hurried to Tskek, whispering urgently. The Supreme Coordinator's compound eyes widened. "Commander Chen," he said, his translator struggling to convey his alarm, We have detected a transmission from your homeworld. Earth has been moved to immediate containment status. A suppression fleet was dispatched before your wormhole event. Chen's blood ran cold. What does that mean? It means, Abrams interjected, his eyes darting between the aliens' reactions. They were already planning to cage humanity, but now we've given them something they desperately want, and something they deeply fear. The Curiosity's crew quarters aboard the consortium station hummed with unfamiliar energy signatures. 2 weeks had passed since their arrival, and the initial hostility had transformed into a wary scientific fascination. Commander Chen watched through an observation panel as Dr. Maya Singh, their linguist, conversed fluently with a gelatinous Murex diplomat. The alien's translator had been deactivated. Unnecessary now that Singh had mastered their vibrational language in mere days. Remarkable, murmured Tiskik, who had taken to observing the humans personally. The Murex language typically requires 3 generations of specialized study, even with neural enhancements. Dr. Singh has always had an ear for patterns, Chen replied. Before joining my crew, she mastered 17 Earth languages. Not the same. Tiskik's mandibles clicked. Murex communication contains frequency overlays that your auditory structures shouldn't detect, let alone interpret. In another chamber, Navarro had assembled what appeared to be a small reactor using components from 6 different alien technologies, systems that consortium engineers insisted were fundamentally incompatible. Your engineer combines Quar crystal matrices with Voral plasma conduits, Tiskik observed. Our specialists devoted centuries to proving these technologies could never interface. Navarro doesn't know they can't work together, Chen said with a hint of pride. So he found a way. Even the Curiosity's chef had caused a stir by creating dishes that appealed across species barriers, combining flavors in ways that defied established sinobiological taste principles. We've completed our analysis of human neural patterns, announced the Voral scientist, its vaporous form swirling excitedly within its containment field. Chen and her senior staff sat before a panel of the consortium's leading researchers. 3-dimensional projections of human brain scans hovered in the chamber center. Observe, continued the Voral, highlighting neural pathways. Where consortium species develop specialized cognitive architecture, humans form generalized connections with unusually high plasticity. Meaning? Chen prompted. A Quar crystalline being stepped forward. Your evolutionary history created minds that constantly reconfigure themselves. Earth's biodiversity and rapid environmental changes forced adaptability over specialization. That's why you mastered wormhole technology, added Tiskek. Not because you're superior mathematicians, but because you explore conceptual spaces we've evolved to avoid as inefficient. Dr. Abrams leaned forward. You're saying we think differently. We're saying you barely think at all by our standards, replied the Quar with blunt precision. You make intuitive leaps instead of following logical progressions. You see connections because you lack the neural structures that would properly categorize and separate concepts. Yet it works, Chen observed. Indeed, admitted Tiskek. And therein lies our dilemma. The diplomatic reception was the first gathering where humans mingled freely with consortium representatives. Progress, Chen thought, despite the tension still evident in some delegations. She didn't see the Voral diplomat approach her drink with a nearly invisible tendril until Navarro shouted a warning and knocked the glass from her hand. The liquid sizzled as it hit the floor. Security forces swarmed immediately, restraining the Voral as Tiskek rushed to Chen's side. Commander, I assure you this incident does not represent consortium policy, he insisted, compound eyes darting nervously. Doesn't it? Challenged Dr. Abrams. Or is this just the first public attempt after multiple failed ones? The chamber fell silent. What does he mean? Chen demanded. Tiskek's translator hesitated before conveying his response. The consortium exists in equilibrium. For millennia, our specialized societies have advanced together, each contribution predicted and planned. Humans represent unquantifiable variables. Some fear you, admitted a Quar elder, Stepping forward, others see you as the key to breaking centuries of technological stagnation. And which side are you on? Chen asked Sakek directly. The Supreme Coordinator's mandibles worked silently for a moment. I am beginning to believe that question itself reveals the difference between us, Commander. We have always thought in terms of sides, of specialization, of separation. Perhaps that is why we have reached our limits. As security escorted the Voral assassin away, Chen caught a glimpse of information on a passing attendant's datapad. Restricted files about something called the collapse, and a countdown clock that seemed to be accelerating. The collapse is real, and it's coming sooner than anyone predicted. Tiskik's voice was low, his compound eyes constantly scanning for surveillance as he led Chen through a restricted section of the consortium archives. The assassination attempt had changed everything. With her security clearance elevated as part of the diplomatic fallout, Chen had leveraged her new access to investigate the mysterious countdown she glimpsed. What exactly is the collapse? She asked, following the insectoid through a series of biometric checkpoints. The end of civilization as we understand it, Tiskik replied. It has happened before. It will happen again. His mandibles clicked nervously. According to historical records, the collapse occurs cyclically when galactic civilizations achieve certain technological configurations. They entered a chamber unlike any Chen had seen before. Ancient artifacts floated in stasis fields, fragments of technology far more advanced than even the consortium's most sophisticated systems. The architects, Tiskik gestured to the artifacts, the species that came before us all. They seeded the galaxy with sentient life before disappearing approximately 12 million years ago. Chen approached a floating fragment that resembled the tuning fork from Abrams' asteroid base, only vastly larger and more complex. The signal, she whispered in realization, it came from them. Correct. The architects left tests throughout the galaxy, mathematical puzzles embedded in quantum frequencies. We believe they were searching for species with the cognitive abilities to survive the collapse. Holographic displays activated, showing simulations of entire star systems dissolving into clouds of disorganized matter. The collapse isn't a natural phenomenon, Chen realized. It's targeted. It specifically affects advanced technology. Sakik's translator hesitated before conveying his response. The consortium has survived by deliberately maintaining technological equilibrium, avoiding the configurations that trigger the collapse. We call it managed progress. You've been deliberately limiting your advancement, Chen said, the implications dawning on her. That's why you're so stagnant. Safe, Tiskik corrected. But now our sensors have detected energy patterns matching historical records of the collapse forming at the galactic edge. It's happening centuries ahead of projections. A display showed a wave of disruptive energy sweeping through distant star systems, already consuming the outermost consortium worlds. And the wormhole technology. What does that have to do with this? Sakik approached a sealed container at the chamber center. Inside lay what appeared to be a partial schematic, its equations hauntingly similar to the signal patterns Chen had detected from Andromeda. The architect's defense mechanism. Properly implemented, stable wormhole technology creates a dimensional buffer that protects against the collapse. But the mathematics requires neural plasticity, Chen finished. The ability to intuitively grasp multidimensional concepts. Precisely what consortium species lack, and what humans appear to possess in abundance. They've been hiding this for millennia, Chen explained to her gathered crew. Dr. Abrams paced frantically, his eyes darting between the data they'd smuggled from the archives. It makes perfect sense, he muttered. The signal found me because I was already sensitive to higher dimensional mathematics. It was looking for minds that could perceive the solution. The architects didn't just vanish, added Singh, studying the translated records. They transcended into higher dimensions to escape the collapse permanently. But they left breadcrumbs, Navarro concluded, examining the schematic fragments, for anyone who could follow. Chen nodded. And now we're facing a choice. The Consortium Council is divided. Half want to contain the collapse using traditional methods, sacrificing outer colonies to save core worlds. The other half want to implement the Architect's defense using human cognitive patterns. Both sides using us for their own ends, Abrams said bitterly. Maybe, Chen replied. But there's a third option. The complete defense schematic is supposedly housed in a forbidden sector, an architect structure orbiting an engineered pulsar. No consortium expedition has ever returned from there. She pulled up a star chart showing the location. So we go ourselves, Navarro said quietly, before anyone can stop us, or before the collapse reaches critical systems, Chen agreed. The countdown I saw gives us less than 2 weeks. As if in response, the station lights flickered momentarily, the first tangible sign that the distant wave of technological disruption was growing stronger. Abrams looked at the equations one more time, his expression clearing with sudden understanding. The music of the universe, he whispered. It wasn't madness. The architects weren't just building technology. They were composing reality itself. The joint expedition vessel emerged from a hastily constructed wormhole, systems flickering as the unstable passage collapsed behind them. Before them hung the architect structure, a massive orbital array surrounding an engineered pulsar that pulsed with unnatural precision. Remarkable, whispered a core scientist, crystalline structures glittering with reflected light. The pulsar's emissions are perfectly modulated. It's broadcasting something. The defense protocols, Chen confirmed, reviewing the sensor data, just as the archives suggested. Their vessel, a hybrid of Curiosity's systems and consortium technology, had been assembled in mere days after Chen convinced Skik and a faction of the Council to support the mission. Alongside her human crew, representatives from 7 consortium species had volunteered, recognizing that specialization alone couldn't solve this crisis. Approach vector plotted, Navarro announced from the navigation console. But I'm detecting automated defense systems powering up. They don't appear friendly. The architects didn't want just anyone accessing their legacy, Dr. Abrams said, his gaze fixed on the structure. We need to broadcast the signal pattern, the key we found in the archives. As Singh transmitted the complex mathematical sequence, the expedition held its collective breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, defense platforms that had been tracking them powered down, and a docking bay spiraled open like an iris. It recognized us, Chen said quietly. Or at least it recognized the key. As they docked, Skik approached Chen privately. Commander, I must warn you. Not everyone aboard supports this mission's success. What do you mean? Conservative factions fear what might happen if humans access architect technology directly. Some would prefer the collapse to reduce all species equally rather than elevate yours disproportionately. This isn't about elevating anyone, Chen replied sharply. It's about survival. To you, perhaps, Tuskik's mandibles clicked softly. But power balances that have existed for millennia are at stake. The interior of the architect's structure defied comprehension. Corridors shifted as they walked, reconfiguring to accommodate their presence. Gravity fluctuated according to some pattern that they couldn't discern. Finally, they reached the central chamber, a vast spherical space containing what appeared to be a miniature galaxy. It's a simulation system, Dr. Abrams realized, watching tiny stars form and die in accelerated time, modeling civilizational trajectories. The core scientist interfaced with a control surface. Billions of permutations, testing different species configurations, technological developments, social structures. A holographic interface activated before Chen, responding to her neural patterns. Images flashed before her eyes. The architects, revealed at last. Not a single species, but a collective of different evolutionary lineages that had merged their consciousness over millennia. Cognitive diversity is the only sustainable defense against cosmic entropy. The interface communicated directly to her mind. Those who specialize exclusively become predictable. What is predictable can be unmade. The collapse, she whispered. It targets predictable technological configurations. "Commander," Navarro called suddenly. "I've detected sabotage in our propulsion systems. Someone's locked out the controls." Skik's warning proved prescient as a Voral scientist suddenly extracted a device from its containment field. "The old order must be preserved," it announced. "Humans cannot be permitted to access transcendence technology." Before anyone could react, the saboteur activated the device, causing a cascade failure in the station's power systems. Emergency containment fields snapped into place, separating the expedition members. Through a barrier field, Chen watched in horror as the simulation system began to destabilize. The miniature galaxy flickered, its stars winking out. "Commander," Dr. Abrams called through the communication system, his voice urgent. "The defense network is failing, and long-range sensors are showing the collapse accelerating toward populated systems. It's hours away, not days." On a functioning display, Chen watched as the approaching wave of entropic energy consumed everything in its path, breaking down complex technological systems and reverting matter to simpler states. Behind it lay only lifeless worlds. They had found the Architect's defense system, but now they were trapped inside it as it failed, with saboteurs among them and annihilation approaching rapidly. "We have 6 hours before the collapse reaches the nearest populated system," Chen announced, addressing the fragmented expedition through emergency communication channels. The containment field still separated them throughout the Architect structure, a result of the Voral saboteur's actions. "Can we reactivate the defense system?" asked Skik from his isolated section. Dr. Abrams' voice crackled through the comm. "Not as designed. The sabotage has damaged critical integration nodes. The Architects built this as a unified system. It can't function with components missing." Chen paced before the simulation display, watching civilizations rise and fall in accelerated time. Each followed precise, predictable patterns, until they didn't. Her eyes narrowed as she noticed something. "The simulations that survive the collapse," she said slowly, "they're not the most advanced or the most powerful." "Correct," confirmed the core scientist. "They're the most adaptable, the ones that incorporate multiple cognitive approaches." Something clicked in Chen's mind. What if we're thinking about this wrong? The Architects didn't just leave behind a technology to be activated. They left a lesson to be learned. She turned to the neural interface, still responding to her brainwave patterns. The defense system doesn't need to be repaired. It needs to be reimagined. With newfound determination, Chen outlined her radical plan. Instead of following the Architect protocols exactly as designed, they would incorporate human improvisation, using the defense network in ways its creators may never have intended. "We distribute control nodes to representatives from each species," she explained, "not in sequence as the manual suggests, but simultaneously, creating a cognitive network mimicking human neural flexibility on a galactic scale." "Impossible," objected a Voral loyalist. "The system requires precise calibration by specialist minds." "Which is exactly why it's failed before," Chen countered. "Specialization creates predictability. The collapse targets predictable patterns." Navarro managed to override the containment fields, reuniting the expedition. Working feverishly, they'd reconfigured the control systems, linking the neural interfaces to accommodate multiple users simultaneously, something the original design explicitly warned against. "This is either brilliant or suicidal," muttered Skik as he took his position at one of the control nodes. Chen smiled grimly. "That's the most human thing you've ever said." As the collapse reached the outer defense perimeter, the hybrid system activated. Chen felt her consciousness expand as the neural interface connected her to the others, human and alien minds, linked in unprecedented harmony. Through the shared consciousness, she perceived the collapse clearly for the first time. Not a weapon or malevolent force, but a natural process, the universe's immune response to certain patterns of technological development that threatened dimensional stability. "It's not trying to destroy us," she communicated to the network. "It's trying to restore balance." Understanding rippled through the connected minds. Rather than fighting the collapse directly, they began to work with it, redirecting its energy, channeling it through the engineered pulsar in controlled bursts. The view screen showed the approaching wave transforming. Instead of disintegrating everything in its path, it began flowing around protected systems, concentrating on abandoned or automated installations while leaving inhabited worlds largely intact. It's working. Navarro's consciousness pulsed with excitement within the network. We're turning it into a controlled burn. Through their shared perception, they watched as the collapse's energy actually rejuvenated dying star systems, breaking down artificial constraints and allowing natural processes to resume. Not all could be saved. Reports filtered through of outer consortium worlds lost to the wave's initial uncontrolled force. But the inhabited core, billions of lives across thousands of systems, had been spared the annihilation that historical records had led them to expect. As the immediate crisis passed and the neural network began to disengage, Chen caught a final impression from the architect interface. Not words, but a sensation of approval. This was the solution they had hoped for. Not a species advanced enough to use their technology, but one adaptable enough to reimagine it. The human variable, Tiskik said with newfound respect as they disconnected from the system. You didn't just solve the puzzle, you changed the rules of the game itself. 6 months after the collapse, Commander Eliza Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned vessel Synthesis, watching as representatives from 30 different species boarded for the inaugural ceremony. The massive ship represented something unprecedented, a true collaboration of human and consortium-designed philosophies. Amazing how quickly things change, Dr. Abrams said, joining her at the viewport. His appearance had transformed since their first reunion on the asteroid. Now he stood straight and clear-eyed, the haunted expression replaced by focused purpose. The consortium existed unchanged for millennia, Chen replied. Now it's gone, replaced by the Galactic Concord in a matter of months. Below them, Earth glittered in the darkness, now host to embassies from across the galaxy. The planet that had been marked for containment had become the unlikely nexus of a new interstellar community. They needed us, Abrams mused. Not just our cognitive patterns, but our willingness to improvise, to try what shouldn't work. Skik approached, his translator now programmed with informal human expressions. The last consortium holdouts have requested membership in the Concord, he announced. Your human thinking courses are oversubscribed on 17 worlds. Chen smiled at the irony. The cognitive diversity that had made humans seemingly erratic and dangerous to the specialized consortium species had become the most sought-after educational program in the galaxy. Teams of human instructors were now deployed across former consortium space, teaching aliens how to think more flexibly. And the signal? She asked. Any recurrence? Abrams nodded. Just yesterday. Different pattern but same mathematical signature. We're still analyzing it, but I believe the architects are finally ready to reveal themselves. Not exactly, came Singh's voice as the linguist joined them. I've completed the final translations from the architect archive. They didn't just transcend to escape the collapse. They evolved beyond physical form entirely. What we're communicating with are more like echoes, quantum resonances of consciousness. The music of the universe, Abrams whispered, vindicated at last. A soft chime announced the arrival of the Concord Council members. The ceremony would soon begin, establishing Earth as the headquarters of the new galactic organization and Chen as humanity's first representative. Commander, Tiskik said formally as they prepared to enter the Grand Hall, I must confess something. When we first encountered your vessel, I advocated for your immediate containment. I believed humans too unpredictable, too dangerous to join galactic society. And now? Chen asked. Now I understand that predictability was our greatest weakness. For millennia, we specialized, categorized, separated. We evolved to think in straight lines while the universe moves in spirals. The Grand Hall fell silent as Chen took the podium, facing representatives of civilizations spanning 3 galaxies. Some had been bitter enemies under the old consortium. Others had been deemed too primitive for contact. Now they sat together, united by their shared experience of almost losing everything. The architects left us more than technology, Chen began. They left us a lesson about the nature of intelligence itself. They understood that survival doesn't belong to the strongest or the smartest, but to those who can adapt, who can see new connections, who can rewrite the rules when necessary. She gestured to the view screen showing the synthesis, its design incorporating elements from dozens of different species' technologies. Humanity's greatest gift was never our ability to solve the puzzle, she continued, but our capacity to imagine new solutions when the existing ones proved insufficient. And now we offer that gift to you, as you have offered your knowledge to us. As Chen concluded her address, a new signal pulsed across every communication system simultaneously, a complex mathematical pattern somehow translated directly into emotion rather than language. Not words, but a sensation of connection, stretching across space and time to touch all present. They're listening, Abrams whispered in awe. They always were. Chen nodded, her gaze drawn to the stars visible through the hall's transparent dome. The mission that had begun with an impossible signal had transformed into something greater than any single species could have achieved alone. The cosmic symphony played on, and now, at last, they were all part of the harmony.